Is the Amazon Kindle Oasis dead? In a way, kind of. We've seen no movement from the Kindle Oasis since October of 2017, making this the 6th year of zero advancements outside of the Oasis 3, which was just a color change and a warm light. It could be safe to say that the Oasis line has all but been forgotten, seeing as the Paperwhite, the Scribe, and the Basic have taken the spotlight. Since then, multiple companies have copied the recipe that made the Oasis so appealing. After all, evidently, asymmetrical body plus page turn buttons equals success. So what is this then? Well, this is the iReader Ocean 3. If you haven't heard of it by now, yes, they're on their 3rd generation of this particular model. iReader has a varied lineup that spans 6-inch devices, color, and even 10.3s with physical page turn buttons and Wacom tech. The Ocean 3 features Carta 1200, which is 20% faster than last gen, image enhancement mode, black and white color inversion, and an all-new tempered glass technology that allows it to retain the exact same rigidity but become thinner. Therefore, the image doesn't look as distorted. These selling points matter when it comes to a device like this, because outside of reading, it can't really do a whole lot. After all, this is not a tablet. So let's see how this device works as a dedicated ebook reader, starting with the UI. iReader's UI is very easy to understand. It basically has bookshelf, store, and settings. That's really it. You have a couple extra dots up here where you can go into File Manager. File Manager is very useful. This is where you're going to find everything: your images, your music, books, dictionary, file import, export, etc. Now, it does have some ways to import books outside of the USB cable, but it utilizes things like Baidu and WeChat. So keep in mind, if you want to use the onboard services, it's going to require those. But you can easily just do what we did and use a USB cable and sideload in PDFs, manga, and comics and books, which we'll show you in a little bit. Store is the store, and unfortunately, no, there's no English content. There is some English content, but it's mostly going to be Chinese. And back to here, you can go batch management, file browser again, new folder, cloud books, vocabulary books, and display mode where you can toggle between grid, list, etc. Gonna skip over to settings now, because this is where we're going to find a lot of the things that this has to offer in terms of display services and whatnot. If we go down to display, this is where we're going to find what we mentioned at the top end, image enhancement. You can see here, if you have image enhancement off, it's going to show kind of these dedicated, distinct lines when it comes to scaling. So this is a grayscale gradient of the background, so you'll see that it has these lines when it goes from light to dark. But if you go like this, it actually changes the overall quality of it all and enhances the image, not just on images themselves, but the entire unit. If you haven't guessed by now, yes, iReader is fully in English now, so you don't have to worry about language barriers. Tools is going to be your apps, and you have some apps here. You have cloud services, but that's Youdao, and excuse my pronunciation, I'm not saying that correctly. That's Baidu, and you have some other things like transfer, which we explained earlier. Now, you do have something that is a little bit known in the world of North America, at least, and that is Evernote, which you can use on this unit. You also have a recorder, because it does have microphones on board, and the file managers there again. These are all of them, by the way. You can't add any more, and even if you go to these subsections, they're just subsections of the all tab that we were on before. Translate is slightly useful, but it is only ever going to be from Chinese to English and vice versa, so you can't utilize any additional Spanish or French or Italian or German or anything like that, so it's limited to just 2 languages. Finally, the top dropping down, you can do screenshot, rotation lock, global refresh, power saving mode, smart assistant, and you can do lock screen. You also have your glow lights, we'll show you a little bit later, and yes, it has onboard audio, so you can utilize volume and music. You have this little floating ball which you can turn off and on, and this has various different things you can do, and you can choose what you want to be there and what you don't want to be there. You can just toggle it right there. It's kind of like the floating ball that basically Onyx and Big Me and everyone has in the industry nowadays. Good and bad news, we can show books with the stock reader app on board, but unfortunately they're not going to be the books that are downloaded from the store market experience because they won't be in English. So as you turn pages, you'll notice it's quite fast. Now it is a little wonky, as you can see here, because it is asymmetrical and it's not laying flat because of the bulge, so we'll hold down the other side here. So the page turns are quite nice, and if you long press, unfortunately nothing happens. It doesn't have any sort of speed, rapid page turn engine, or jump of any kind. You can tap the bottom and you can go into settings. This is where we're going to have your font sizes, your layout if you want to do some reflow, and your fonts. Now the fonts will be in different kind of layouts, and they're all going to be either have to be applied or downloaded, or they will be in Chinese or they won't be in Chinese, and English has a few. So it's just going to be something you're going to have to kind of look at because they don't really give you previews for the fonts. As you click on them, you see here, you just have to kind of click paused and download, and then they'll start to gradually come in. If you go over here back to the center and you click the settings once more, you can go into dark mode, in which case it changes all the blacks to whites and the whites to black. I must say, looking at this, aside from just talking about this objectively, this is looking very close to the surface. Now, if you notice a bunch of our videos, we say that a lot, and that matters. A lot of devices have a lot of layers in front of the viewing experience and the EPD, the electronic paper display. This one has less things because it lacks a certain Wacom layer because it doesn't have note-taking, and it's using a thinner glass, which means there doesn't have to be as much physical glass in front of the panel. They can actually shorten that and make it thinner while retaining all the strength of it. So that's really nice. It feels like everything's very close. It almost feels like they've bridged the gap between a flush screen and bezel and a sunken screen. Is it perfect? No, because you do still see a very faint shadow here casting on the actual panel from the bezel. So it's not 100%, but it's pretty darn good, I must say. If you long press on something, you get notes, underline, copy, search, encyclopedia, and share, as well as a system dictionary that doesn't have to connect to the internet in order to use. Last thing before we move on to comics is the maximum font. Looks a little bit ridiculous, but it's just to prove a point. This is a very white background. A lot of the time, we've been covering a lot of color recently. Color devices, Kaleido devices, gallery, and the background either looks blue or orange respectively. And this one actually looks pretty white. If you compare it to the actual whiteboard here, it's not exactly white, but it's as absence of any color as we've seen in a very long time, because there really haven't been a whole lot of e-book readers released recently, more so just Android tablets with e-paper screens. This does have a very good quality. You can see all the rounded characters. It is using Carta 1200, so it's very high quality. It's 300 ppi, very dense pixels. It's not going to have any pixelation. It's not going to have any blurriness. It doesn't look washed out like color. Dedicated ebooks are the way to go if you want to read books, and that is really the only thing you want to do because features are quite limited on devices like this. Comic books. Again, you could probably find some comics and some graphic novels and some magazines and editorials and all that fun stuff on the store, but they won't be in English, and that's what we focus on for the most part, and that's why we do these videos, to show people that iReader is now looking to become a team player in the world and not just be isolated to mainland China, which is why they even put English to begin with. The comics are going to be side-loaded, and they're going to depend on how you load them in. But overall, without any speed modes built into this device, which actually they did bury, and we'll get to that in a future video, they do have some speed modes on here, but they don't do anything. They said it's in place for later usage, but splitting hairs, this is very good for its overall HD mode. Does go into a little bit of a faux A2 mode, as you can see right there when you do navigate and pinch and zoom, but for the most part, very high quality screen. 7 inches is a perfect size for manga. That's typically what manga is in Japan anyways. Granted, there are cropping issues. That's all going to be the source materials problem when you download it onto your PC before you sideload it in. You want to use this for books, you want to use this for comics, you don't really want to use this for PDFs. We always get asked, what does a PDF look like? And we always get huge flack for it, saying, oh, you shouldn't use these for PDFs. We agree with you guys, we're just showing you it can use. This is a very small screen for PDFs. As you can see right here when we get into any bodies of text, it's unreadable. It's clear, but it's unreadable. You can pinch and zoom, and it does it pretty nicely, I must say. And you do have the ability to long press on PDFs as well, which is really cool. That comes in handy when you're reading things and you can isolate certain text elements. Overall, you don't want to use this if your job is riding on it, if your education is riding on it. It's okay to use this in passing. Odd PDF here and there, look some things over because you have it in your pocket, but don't be banking any sort of importance around PDFs. It's a very small experience. It's a very condensed and scaled down experience. So this isn't A4, it's not A5. I don't even know the size. It must be like a B6 or something because it's very tiny. But the PDF format with the stock reading internals is perfectly fine. No, it's not in color unless you count black, white, and gray as colors. Color e-paper looks like this. This is black and white, but we'll show you some images because it does have an image gallery application on board, so it kind of warrants taking a look at. You can use the physical page turn buttons to go back and forth, and overall, again, the pixel density is really carrying this through because it looks really good. It looks very, very dense. It looks super high quality. Get all those highlights, get all those lowlights. There's no issues with gallery images or gallery functionality of any kind. The volume is loud. It doesn't sound very good. It's very tinny. It feels like there's literally no bass, and any bass you do hear just kind of sounds like you're dropping a small pebble in an empty Pepsi can. It's just not a very good quality of sound, although it does certainly fill up the room quite nicely. And they do have a dedicated music app. You don't get many functions. Granted, you have volume control, which you can also control from the drop down right here, and they will congruently go up and down. You have loop all, and you have list, and then you have forward, back, scan, and pause and play. It's really very basic. Located kind of buried for some reason within the music app is, we'll show you in a second, record. So as you can see right now, I'm in the record section, so I'm talking into it while I'm talking to you guys. So you'll see in a second once I click done. After I have saved success, which is automatic, I can exit. Once I go back to the file manager and over to music, you'll see that your recordings are in there, and it doesn't get categorized unless you do a few extra steps, which is going to the music app and then going to list and then going over to record. So it's very weird the way they've laid that out, but now you can listen to your WAV files of the things that you just talked into. I'm in the record section, so I'm talking into it while I'm talking to you guys. So you'll see in a second and it does utilize the same music app to play back the recording to you, and you can export those recordings via the USB cable onto your computer. Last thing we have to show off is the glow light. It is pretty darn white in its only cold version. Okay, we have one little notch of warm on. We'll just turn that off. It doesn't make a difference. This is a really nice glow light, and we've said it before, glow lights don't really have any issues anymore. Since about 2016-17, we haven't seen many glow light issues anymore, because instead of actual front light, what they're doing now is they're incorporating a gel layer that light shoots into to illuminate the screen, so it has no choice but to be consistent. We haven't seen bleeding or overexposure in a long time. If we turn on the warm, this is mixing them together. It gets a little bit of a stone white, and then we can turn down the cold altogether and get a little bit of an orange hue. This is a nice glow light, and it has some presets. It has lights off, daytime, night, quilt, and custom, but that's really where it ends. I mean, there's not much you can do with the glow light but have the toggles, and I mean, them giving you presets is a little bit of a bonus if you ask me. Custom is going to be that, and any of these will already be preset, and you can't change them or save them or lock them in. They're just going to be those. No fancy features, but still giving you the necessities like onboard audio, a few light apps like file transfers, music players, all while retaining the basics of an e-reader. This brand sneaks under the radar for the most part, as people don't really know iReader as a household name. Not by a long shot. But increased screen clarity, 20% faster than competing devices, all with being in full English, it definitely warrants a look. If you want to grab one of these, they're available in our store. Thanks for watching.